All right, guys, we are live. Make sure you guys turn your cameras on and you check in, please. Everybody check in. So we can start today's chapter, chapter 4.
Check.
Yes. Si hace el download de la aplicación es mejor. Sí. All right, we got 2 people check in. 3. Let's see who we got. Marlon, Melissa, and Philip checked in. Everybody else missing? Lo que le aparezca ahí, usted tiene que... Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, ahí está su nombre, Eric. Okay, good. Eric checked in. What's happening to everybody else? Jose? No check-in yet? Let's see. All right, Jose's in. Susanna, are you just looking at the screen or are you checking in? Let's see, who else? Monifa's not here yet. Roberto's not here yet. All right. You guys ready? Jose, yeah, you're in. You're good. All right. So today we're going to go over chapter 4 and chapter 5. Chapter 4, we're going to talk about ownership. And you're probably wondering, well, didn't we talk about ownership yesterday? Right? We went over estates. We talked about ownership. We talked about property. We talked about all this, right? So what we're going to talk about ownership today is forms of ownership. Okay? So we're going to start with sole ownership. Sole ownership means one person or one entity owning. So it could be an LLC, it could be an individual name, LLC or individual name. One person or entity, sole ownership by him or herself or its own entity. That's it. We call this tenancy in severalty. Sorry, it's page 39. Page 39. Okay? This is called tenancy in severalty. What I want to show you guys is this word right here. A lot of people get confused when they see tenancy in severalty because you think several means a lot of people, right? Right? But severalty means it's cut from everybody else. So it's not several, it's severalty. And it's cut from everybody else. Everybody's outside. So when you see tenancy in severalty, means one person that owns the property. One person or one entity that owns the property. Tenancy in severalty. Okay? Now, if it's a single party, that owns the property, we can pass the property to heirs. Okay, by probate. So when we die, our shares go to our heirs. That's a little different from the other ones we're going to go over. You might have that option, you might not have that option. But if you are the sole owner, when you die, the property goes to your heirs. Okay? Hello. How are you? It's good for exercise. All right. Everybody complains about the stairs. We're on the 3rd floor. There's an elevator, by the way. But everybody complains about the steps. It's good exercise.
Where is the key to the elevator?
It's open. That's it. All right. Next, we have co-ownership. So if it's sole ownership is just one entity, co-ownership, you have 2+ people. 5:30. You have 2 or more people, right? So 2+ people. Now, 2+ people could own as tenancy in common. We call this TICs to be simple. They could own as joint tenancy, JT, as I'll talk about it later, right? And if they're married, it's tenancy by the entireties. Okay? We're on page 39, 40, actually. 39 or 40. Okay? You guys good so far? One ownership, tenancy in severalty, right? One owner, tenancy in severalty. More people in the ownership could be tenants in common. It could be joint tenancy, or it could be tenancy by the entireties. So in the next page, we have tenants in common. We're going to start with TICs. Next page. You have the first edition or page 40. There you go. All right. So here's what we got. When we talk about TICs, tenants in common, there's a few characteristics that are key. The owners are not married. The owners are not married. For you to be considered tenants in common, we are not married. For you to be considered tenants in common, we are not married. Suzanne, I don't think wine and real estate go well. Just saying. Unless you're sharing with the rest of the group. All right. Huh? You can't drink, I know. We'll talk about that in the break. All right. So not married, right? There has to be 2 or more owners. We have identical rights. Interests are individually owned. We have electable ownership shares. There's no survivorship and no unity of time. I'll talk about these last 2 in a little bit. But for you to be a TIC, 2 or more people not married automatically are TICs, tenants in common, automatically, okay? You can choose to be something else, but you are automatically tenants in common. You have identical rights, meaning you cannot tell me, Bruno, you live on the 1st floor and I'll live on the 2nd floor. You own that portion, I own this portion. No, we own it as a whole. Remember we mentioned this yesterday, right? When we own property, let's say a 3-family, how are we going to split this? It's tough, right? So we own it as a whole, okay? The interests are individually owned, and therefore we have elective shares as well. So we own the property itself, but then I could have 70% ownership and you could have 30% ownership. As an example, we could be 50-50. we choose or we elect how our shares are divided, right? So very, very important. In a marriage, it's 50-50 no matter what, right? But in the tenants in common, it's 2 people not married, or 3 people not married, or 10 people not married. And the shares could be divided unevenly. The shares don't have to be equal shares. Correct. All right. Now, any number of people may be co-tenants in a single property. Co-tenants is obviously they have an estate, they have the possession of the property, the right to use the property, and so on. You remember this from yesterday, right? Individual interests are individually owned, and electable shares. It's very important because the next ownership we're going to talk about, you don't have electable shares. Everything has to be equal. So in the state exam, when you're looking at a question that says John owns 2/3 and Adam owns 1/3, automatically, because it has different shares, automatically, if you're looking at the school or state exam, different shares automatically ticks. Hey, how are you? Automatically ticks. Make sure you get my name is, mark it, and then we have to check you in, okay? So automatically ticks. See, she didn't complain about the stairs. She came up here like.
My work is like five floors. Sometimes in the elevator goes down.
All right.
3 or 4 months out of work.
Gotcha. All right, question. With a tick, can we have equal shares?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And no.
Absolutely. We could have, that's what I'm saying. We could have equal shares. But in a tick, we can have unequal shares, right? Did you get the book? No, you purchased the book? Huh? You purchased the class in person, right?
Yes.
Yes. Just give me 1 second so I can get you a book, okay? All right, we got somebody else that just logged in. Make sure you have your correct name on Zoom, please. And meanwhile, guys, just give me 1 quick second. I just need to get a book, okay? What I want you to do is point your... this turned off. Point your phone at that so you can check in. All right, and I'm gonna get you a book. I'll be right back, guys.
You don't have the app. You go to easycheck.com. Easy. Right there. See that symbol right there? The easyme.com. This one here. This one. And then log in. Check in.
You charging me $5? One person, yes.
You can download the app and it's easy.
All right, we're back. Chapter 4 and Chapter 5.
Page 40. Page 40?
All right, I don't know who it is that has the camera off. Don't forget you have to have the camera on and you have to check in. Tick, you can have equal or unequal shares, yes. Also make sure your name is correct on Zoom, please.
Two or more owners, same thing.
I'm sorry.
Two or more owners, same thing.
Two or more owners could be ticks. We're going to talk about the next one, which is JT, in a little bit. Elsie, did you check in?
Oh, I have to download this. I don't have it on my
You don't have to. You can go to goeasy.me. Yep, if you want. All right. Let's see, Monifa, check in, please. Gilbert just joined us. Okay. Cool. Oh yeah. All right. So, I think everybody is in right now. We'll talk about it in the break. You could put a student ID, any number you want. Yep. When it's the session ID, if it says session ID, then you have to put this one here. Mm-hmm.
What ID should I?
Right now, you can put any number you want. Yeah, doesn't matter. Sorry, guys, just a tiny delay. Oh, Francis, check in. Miracle. What about the extra people in the car? You gotta check everybody in. All right, we're missing Amira and we're missing Roberto.
The tick in a comment, will that fall in the task or like the shares? How many percent of shares should it be? For that kind of.
It won't fall the percentage shares. What I was trying to say is that if you see unequal shares, if you see instead of 50-50 or 25-25-25, if it's unequal shares, automatically your answer is tick. Automatically. If you see equal shares, you have to read a little bit more to figure out if it's the other one we're going to talk about, okay, which is the JT. I'm sorry. Yes, it's 18352. Session ID 18352. Yes. Meanwhile, you guys can ask any questions you might have. I'll address them right now. Marlon says the screen's a little blurry. Okay, I'll unblur it in a second. We're gonna see as soon as I change. We're gonna see if it stays blurry. All right, Elsie, you are checked in. Perfect. So with every chapter, from here on, you just have to either put the session ID or point at the screen, and it should check you in for the chapter. Okay, perfect. All right, so where were we? We're on page 40 again. We just addressed ticks. Ticks, very important. Two or more people, not married to each other. That's key. We have identical rights. We have interests individually owned, right? There's no survivorship. You can have unequal shares and so on. Okay. Now, one thing to remember is this. in absence of stated ownership shares. Let's say, for instance, we buy a property together, and I said, I put $70,000, you put $30,000. How would our shares be split? I put 70, you put 30. How would our shares be split? 100% to whom? I'll take 100%. But if I put $70,000 and you put 30,000, it is commonly understood that I get 70% and you get 30, right? But in absence, guys, in absence of stated ownership shares, we have here, in absence. So we did not put on the deed who owns what. We did not state how much ownership we have. In this case, if we do not state how much money we put in and what shares they're equivalent to, automatically it is assumed that each person has a share equal to that of the others. Okay? So I want you to think that the deed is like your partnership agreement or operating agreement. It should state the exact amount of shares that each one of us owns. If it does not state anything, then it's 50-50. If there's 3 people, 33% each. If there's 4 people, 25 each. No matter how much money you put in, right? Hey, if you forgot, you forgot. No, I know, but if it's not stated, then you guys see the deed doesn't have anything stated, you get another deed. You correct the deed, right? All right, guys, you good so far? So let's summarize this again. TICs, or tenants in common, 2 or more people not married to each other, right? They could have equal shares, they could have unequal shares. But if we don't state the amount of shares that we own, automatically it's equal, okay? If you do not state the shares you own, automatically is equal. There's no survivorship. What this means is that when you die, your shares, okay? Sorry. When you die, your shares go to your heirs. And I'm going to show that in a second. So let's say good. So let's say this represents 100% ownership. Okay? And we have A, B, and C. Now, A has these shares, C has these shares, and B has these shares, all right? You guys good so far? All right. If you guys can see from the screen, the shares are divided. The shares being divided, unequal shares, automatically this is what type of ownership? TIC. So this is automatically tenants in common. TIC. Very good. All right. Now what happens in the TIC, we don't have the right of survivorship. What is the right of survivorship? YouTubers, if you have any questions, you can also ask, okay? Go to the live chat and just ask questions. So what happens with no right of survivorship? What happens is, if C dies, okay? If C dies, the shares goes to the heirs. And that's normal, right? If it's my shares, why would they go to anybody else? So my shares, when I die, whatever I own in the property, the interest I own in the property, goes to my heirs, to my survivors. Okay? Good so far? If A dies, the same thing. If B dies, the same thing. So shares go to heirs. This is a TIC. All right? Sorry, you still writing? Excuse me. I'm doing it my way. I'm not doing the book way. And B has the biggest shares because my name is Bruno, so therefore I have the biggest shares, and I don't die. I killed C. How it is. Get used to it. All right, you good? All right. So back to the book. There's also no unity of time. So one of the things that the next ownership has, that's a requirement, or type of ownership has, that's a requirement, is unity of time. What does that mean? That we all purchased at the same time. In a tick, I can purchase today with Katya, I'm going to purchase with you, and then later on we bring Eric. In another day, in another week, in another year, right? We bring Eric. That's not a problem. There's no unity of time, meaning we don't have to buy at the same time, okay? And here you have some examples of this. You can sell your interest, you can buy interest, you can do whatever you want. Conveyance, you forgot what this is? All right, Philip, before I address your question, I'm going to address this. Well, actually, you guys are going to address this. What does this word mean? Well, you said you forgot, so now you want to answer? Mm-hmm. Jose for the win. First one to answer. Transfer. So guys, every time you see the word conveyance, means transfer. Transfer means conveyance. Conveyance means transfer. Transfer means conveyance. So whenever there's a transfer, that means it was yours, it now belongs to someone else. Okay? So in this case, we had ABC, right? And then C, right here. C sold the interest to D and E. So the 50% was diluted in that transfer. All right? Okay. All right. The next one is transfer upon the death of the owner. Right? So A died and the shares were transferred to the kids, D and E, 10% each. Okay? It's a transfer upon the death of the owner. Conveyance is also transfer, but it's a regular transfer. I sell to you. Okay? All right. Philip. Conveyance is transfer. Transfer is conveyance. Yep. All right, let's see here. Philip, you put instead of reversionary. And it's not a question, it's a statement, so let me address that regardless. So Philip, reversionary interest means it comes back to me, right? So that's the statement you're saying. In this scenario, we're just talking about type of ownership, and we're not considering any restrictions, right? So I just want to mention it because if anybody saw your message or your statement, right? I don't want anybody confused. Reversionary interest is when the property comes back to you because there was a clause, there was something in the deed that says, when you die, property comes back to me. Right? So that's the life estate, for instance. Or if you change the condition of the property, the color, for instance, property comes back to me. So that would be the reversionary part. Okay. In this scenario, we're just talking about types of ownership. If there's one person, if there's two, if there's 10 people, if they're married, if they're not married, that's all we're talking about. So that's why I don't want to confuse anybody with the reversionary right now, okay? So I know probably not a question, but don't want to confuse anyone with it. Jose goes, why don't they use easy language? I know. And this is supposed to be the easy language, by the way. Nope, this one is. A few chapters maybe, but the majority, this one's a lot easier to go through. The verbiage is the same. All right, joint tenancy, I told you guys, JT, right? It's just easy as I speak about it. I'm just going to say JT from now on. Or anything else if it lets me write on it. So let's erase this. Okay, so with the JT, what is the difference between the JT and the what do you call it, and the tick? What is the biggest difference between these two? Okay, must have equal shares. Pretty much, right? And one more. These are the main differences. The right of survivorship. I'm going to explain it all in a second. Right of survivorship. These are the main things about that you need to remember about JT. Okay? All right, Amira joined us. I killed Melissa yesterday, not you. I thought you're just gone, scared about it. Hold on, let me give you the sign in real quick. Check in, Amir, real quick. It's okay, you weren't the only one. All right, so as Amir is checking in, all right, great, perfect. We're gonna go back here. And like I said, the main thing you need to remember for this type of ownership, JT or joint tenancy, is equal shares, and we have the right of survivorship. So in the JT, two or more people collectively own the property as if they were a single person, meaning our rights and interests are indivisible and equal. Notice that now in my whiteboard right now, I have everything equal, right? There's no division, so it's indivisible, right? No division, therefore equal shares. This is key, right? This is now considered a JT or a joint tenancy. JT or joint tenancy. Well, it's equal shares. It is assumed if there's two people, right, it's 50-50. If there's three people, 30%. If there 33%, if there's four, 25. But we don't divide it. Okay? Indivisible. Correct. Yep, we own it as a whole, just like a husband and wife would. Okay? So in this scenario, it's like a husband and wife. Let's say there's 10 people. I know it's going to be a bad picture, but imagine us all married. That's what it is, right? So 10 people, imagine us all married. We own it as one. Okay? Jose is like, no. You barely see two people married nowadays? Society, right? All right, next. It says right here, each has a shared interest in the whole property, which cannot be divided. Joint tenants may only convey their interests to outside parties as tenants in common. So if you are to sell your interests, right? If you are to sell your interest, the outside person, the new person that comes in, becomes a tick. So let's say C sells the shares to D. Okay? C sold his ownership to D. Well, let's assume this is 33%. Now, D is 33% owner of this property. But you guys notice that there's a division now? Right? It's cut from all the others, right? So D is now a tick, while A and B continue to be joint tenants. I'm going to explain better. What do you mean mix? Well, that's what it is right here. This is a JT and a tick. The problem is when I sell to somebody else, the new person that comes in is not part of the original contract, of the original deed. Therefore, does not have the same rights as A and B have. Okay? So that's what I was showing right here. You cannot convey the joint tenant interest. You cannot convey the joint tenant interest. So when you sell, that person becomes a tick. Right? It's going to become clearer in a second, okay? Now, the defining characteristics of joint tenancy are unity of ownership, equal ownership, transfer of interest, and survivorship. These are characteristics and requirements for joint tenancy. Unity of ownership. We are all the same in every way, shape, or form. We're getting to that. So on the next page, it says unity of ownership. Whereas in the tenant in common, you hold a separate title. Remember that cut I had right here? Right? Separate title in the tenants in common. Joint tenants, they hold it together as a single title to the property. We have equal ownership. This is very, very important. Equal ownership. Without exception. If you see a question that has unequal shares, automatically, they are tenants in common. Ticks. Okay? Tenants in common. If they have equal shares, now we need to read a little bit more to figure out if it's a JT or if it's a tick. If they have equal, it could be either or. So we need to read more. And here's where the difference is going to come in. It's the survivorship. If it says, for instance, John owns 1/3, Adam owns 2/3. Upon John's death, his shares go to Adam. What type of ownership do we have? It's a JT. Because it goes to the survivor of the group. Survivorship, just like in a marriage, survivorship is one less person in the group. Property comes to the survivor of the group. So let me go back here real quick. And let's say, Eric, we have A, B, and C. Okay? Let's say C dies. In a JT, right? In a tick, I'm sorry, the shares go to the heirs. No, in a tick, it goes to the heirs. But in the JT, yeah, it goes to the owners. It's one less person. So now A and B own the property. And the heirs of C have no claim to the property. Whoever survives, right? And at the end, when A dies, B is the sole survivor. Why are you laughing? B never dies. Just know that. Okay? So now that we have this one, guys, we no longer have a JT. What type of ownership do we have when there's one survivor? When there's one owner, what type of ownership do we have? Severalty. Yes. It's a sole ownership. So it's a tenancy in severalty. Oh, that's what I said. Oh, you weren't here yet. So several means more than one. But severalty, because it says right here, T, is severed from everybody else. It's cut from everybody else. So there's several people except me. Severalty, cut from everybody. Okay? So it used to be a JT, but at the end, there's only one owner. It became a severalty now. And this is all automatically. Okay? Eric? Questions? You're looking at the images there. They're all equal. Yeah, ABC, they're equal. And when one person dies, the other two get it. When the other person dies, only one gets it. Jose says the word several confused me before. Yep. If it was several by itself, it means a lot of people. Severalty means separate from everyone. I know, they don't make it easy on you. I know. All right. So this is what you need to remember, guys. We have 3 types of basic ownership. We still did not talk about marriage. But if it's one person, it's tenancy in severalty. Okay? If it's 2 or more people, and you see the shares are divided, right? And you see shares are divided, then it's a tick. There's divided shares, unequal shares, I'm sorry. It's a tick. If you see equal shares, it could be a tick. It could be a JT. We just need to figure out if there's a survivorship. Okay? For a JT to become a tick. Okay, Jose, I'm going to answer your question in a second. For a JT to become a tick, you have to sell your shares. That's the only way. Okay? But JT will always become a tenancy in severalty because one person is going to survive. Okay? Now, Jose, you wrote severalty is conveyance to has conveyance to heirs. Both the tick, something to remember, both the tick and the severalty have conveyance to the heirs. Okay? Both of them have conveyance to the heirs. So in this case right here, we have a JT and we have a tick. Right? If D dies, shares go to heirs. But if A dies, it's just one less person in the group. Okay? So thinking about this combination of D that came later, right? D is a tick. So if D dies, his or her shares go to the heirs because he or her has become a ticks. But A and B, there were still the original owners under the JT. So they have the right of survivorship. This is the most confusing one. That's why I'm trying to go slow here. Jose, B will never die. Just letting you know, I never die. That's why I'm always a survivor here. But let's say I do, okay? Let's say it happens. Let's say it happens that B dies. What happens to the shares? Well, if B is the only survivor of the group, the original group, but D is still there, then this is not a JT. This is a tick. So B's shares go to B's heirs. Okay, remember, the survivor of the original JT can pass it down to the heirs. Nobody else. Only the survivor of the original JT can pass it down to the heirs. No, from there on, they can do whatever they want.
Okay.
Once, let's say it was 3 people. Once all of us die, the JT ended. So the heirs now take over and do whatever they want. It becomes a tick. Yep, exactly. Philip, now if A dies in this situation, does D shares now become 50%? No, so I guess I just explained that. No, D has no rights to A's shares or anything like that. No, D is separate. You got to remember this. In the JT, anyone that comes after the original purchase is automatically a tick. All right? Anybody that comes after the original purchase. So when we buy, Katya, Eric, and I, when we bought it on May 4th. On May 5th, Philip, if you want to be part of this, you're going to be a tick. You'll never be part of the JT because you came the day after. Right? One thing that's very, very important when it comes to JTs is that to create a JT, we are on page 43. To create a JT, there has to be 4 unities. For a JT to exist, there has to be 4 unities. This is very, very important. And these 4 unities, the very first one is the unity of time. For us to have equal rights, we must have purchased at the same date, at the same time, using the same deed. Our names are listed in the deed. If I added you later, you are a tick, no matter what. All right? We have the unity of interest and unity of possession. So we're all equal in every single way, shape, or form. We are equal in every single way, shape, or form. Because we bought it at the same time, we have equal shares, we have undivided interest, and we are all in the same deed. Anyone that comes after is a tick. Correct. Jose E. on YouTube says D is an exception to the original contract that made the JT. Correct. Because they came after. They're not part of it. So they don't get the same rights. The right of survivorship is only for the people that meet the 4 unities. Any questions? On all of it, yep. Gotta have all 4 to be a JT or joint tenancy. All right, Philip, but if one person in the JT dies, then the whole becomes a tick? So let's go back here. There's 3 of us, right? In the JT, if one person dies, it's just one less person. That's it. If C sold the interest to somebody else, right, and A dies, that's it. D never gets the shares. D never gets the benefits. He has his shares, own shares. D is solely a tick. That's it. And B becomes a tick as well. Because now there's a separation of shares. Okay? Let's make this with more people then, just as an example. There's 4 people. 4 people, right? Yeah, but Philip, you're asking if one person in the JT dies. No, if the last person, if the last survivor is still there, then yes, it becomes a tick. It's not if one person dies. Look, we got 4 people, right? And C decided to sell to E in this case. Boom. E is a tick with 25% interest, right? If A dies, B and D are still a JT. Okay? If D dies, B, because he's the survivor of the group, but unfortunately there's another party there, there's E right there, right? Because there's another party, E makes B now have a tick shares, right? So it's not a tenancy in severalty because there's 2 parties, right? And it's not a JT because E came after. E is not part of the original agreement. So it doesn't matter how many people we have. If one person dies, the survivor or survivors of the group get it. So yes, in this case, 75% ownership. And it's not a JT. Well, 1, because they're not equal shares. 2, because it was not at the same time in the same deed. So even if it had equal shares, let's say, yeah, let's go back. And let's say that A and C decided to sell to E, right? Now it's 50% because 2 people sold to 1. Now E is a 50% tick with B and D JT. When D dies, B gets 50%. JT ends. It's now a tick. It's 50-50. It's equal shares. But again, because E was not part of the original contract, right? They're not part of the original contract, the original deed, the original purchase. They don't have, E was not part of the 4 unities, time, title, interest, and possession. E can never be a JT. Always a tick. Good? Great. Questions? I don't mind repeating this as many times as I have to, because I know this is the most confusing one. Yeah. All right. No questions. We're moving forward. All right. Next we have tendencies by the entire on the next page. Okay. So this is between married people, spouses. Okay. So we have husband and wife. We have spouse and spouse, right? If they're same sex. As long as they're married, and they purchase property together with both of their names on it, right? Automatically, it's called a tenancy by the entirety. Husband and wife own the property as if they were one. Very similar to a JT, right? So, they have the right of survivorship as well. When the husband dies, the wife gets it. When the wife dies, husband gets it. Right of survivorship. They have equal and divided interest as well. So if I go here, husband and wife or spouse and spouse, okay? It's very similar to JT, right? Because there's no division, there's no cut, right? As I said, if the husband dies, right, the wife gets it. It's just one less person in the group. This is a tenancy by the entirety. It's one less person in the group, okay? Any questions so far? What? No. Jose says, right of survivorship means one less person in the group. Yes. Right of survivorship is one less person in the group. Now, here's my question. What if they get divorced? Well, let's say they have equal shares. What if they get divorced and now the wife dies? Who gets the shares? Okay. Elsie? Who gets the shares? Eric? Everybody at home? Who? Yes. You want to give me money? I love it. Right, come on in. To give me. Oh, those are 20s? I don't want it. I don't want 20s. What is that for? Give me hundreds. People walk in with money. We got to stop this class. You're going to give me 5s now? I'm just kidding. What is that for, though? It's for Peter. What is for, though? For the renewal? Okay, cool. No problem. Thank you. All right. Hey, Cham. Come back more often. Same deal, okay? This is for the real estate office, so no, unfortunately not. Doesn't go to my kids. Not even to my pocket right now. All right. So it does not go to the husband because they're divorced. They're divorced. It's the ex-husband. So if the wife dies, it goes to heirs. That's why I said, what if they're divorced? Okay. That's it. Good. All right. Moving forwards, I want you guys to go to page 45, and we have estates and trust. I'm going to go briefly over this because it's not heavily tested in the state exam here, at least. We have living trusts, we have land trusts, right? In an estate and trust, a fee owner, which is the grantor or the trustor, transfers legal title to a fiduciary, or the trustee. The trustee holds or manages the estate for the benefit of another party, the beneficiary. Yes? We'll get to that too. The trust may be created. The trust may be created by a deed, will, or trust agreement. Okay? And the trustee has fiduciary duties or obligations to the trustor and the beneficiary to maintain the condition and value of the property. The specific responsibilities and authorities are set forth in the trust agreement. So here's what we got. The estate in trust. The first question is, what does the word estate mean? We addressed it already yesterday. Estate? Anybody? Philip for a win. Assets. So estate is assets, something that we own, right? In this case, because we're talking about real estate, right, is real property that we own. So we can transfer the title, the deed, and we create an agreement, right, for somebody else, a third party, to manage the property and the ownership of the property. In exchange, I name myself or somebody else the beneficiary. So whatever money comes from here, it belongs to the beneficiaries. The trustor is the creator. The trustor is the creator of the trust. The trustee is a third party. So I can say, for instance, let's say, who am I getting? Marlon. Marlon, I want you to put your name in front of everything else so I can hide mine, right? So I'm going to create a trust, and I'm going to name Marlon the trustee. Now, Marlon holds all the papers, and obviously he gets paid for this. He holds all the papers related to the property. That's it. That's all that's happening. Any money that comes in, like a property manager, any money that comes in, Marlon has to transfer to me. So I gave those rights to Marlon, but then or duties to Marlon, but then Marlon has to transfer the benefits to me, right? Or to whoever I appoint. I could say Elsie is the beneficiary. So I gave it to Marlon, and Marlon, all the monies that come in, give it to Elsie as the beneficiary. So the beneficiary is whoever I name. Okay? Questions on this? It's just an alternative to an LLC. To keep it simple, if you open up a company, it's the same thing. The company is the owner, not you, right? And who's the beneficiary of the company profits? I am, right? So again, this trust, you can actually put it here, so it stays in your mind. Make it easier. Alternative. Okay, it's an alternative to an LLC. We have another chapter where I'll go a little bit more deep into this. Right now, I'm just trying to keep it simple so I don't confuse you too much. A trust, just like an LLC, separates me, the owner, from the asset. Okay? So if anything happens, who are they going to sue? Or in this case, the trust. Yes. The trust is a shield, a protection, a separation of asset and owner. That's all it is. Okay? Functions very similar to an LLC or a corporation. Trust. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any money under the corporate, unless there's fraud, yes. Yep. Monifa says, repeat that again. Okay? That again. You want me to repeat anything else or just that part? That again. So, all I was saying is in an LLC, okay, let me show you here real quick. In an LLC, we have, so the owner, right? We have an LLC or corporation, and we have the house. Okay? The LLC functioned as a filter or a shield. So this is like a shield. It's a shield. So if somebody sues you because they slipped and fell in the house, there's a separation here from the house to us, right? So it separates the house and, hey, you fell in the house, I'm sorry. The insurance does not cover everything, I'm sorry. Can you come after me? Probably not, unless I committed some type of fraud, right? So any assets that are owned, let's say a phone, it's owned by the LLC, right? That's the only thing I can lose. That's why every property that I own is under a separate LLC. Why? Because if somebody slips and falls on this one, they're not coming after my other one. Separate everything. The trust functions a little bit similar to that. Okay? So that's all we're doing. It doesn't hurt all the properties. We're keeping everything separate. And they cannot come after me personally either. Unless, again, you commit fraud. Guys, if you commit fraud, there's no corporation or LLC status or trust that can save you. Fraud is fraud. It's illegal. You lose all the protection. Okay, so the shield is broken at that time.
How come fraud does it have to be?
Trust is you giving that to me and I handle it for you. So there's a separation. Yep. Money laundering. It could be you're using the property or the LLC for illegal activities. Any kind of fraud. Okay. You guys good? Thumbs up? Monifa? No? You didn't get it? You want the microphone? Go ahead. Ooh, getting some echo here. Hold on. Okay. All right. So the trust will hold the property on title. So instead of saying owned by, okay, so let's say the house. When you go to public records, right? In public records, it's supposed to show your name. It's supposed to show owner's name, right? With the trust, here's what we're doing. We're not going to put the owner's name. The owner of the property is John Doe Trust. Or could be also, instead of John Doe Trust, sorry, it could be 120 Main Street Trust. So who owns the property, right? We do not know who owns the property. The only thing we can see is the trust. You don't see my name. You see the trust. Okay? So if you're going to serve papers, on the lawsuit or anything like that, you have to serve the trust. You cannot come after me because you don't know who I am. So it hides, it shields the owner. In certain states, like Delaware, for instance, you cannot even see who's the owner of the LLC. Here in New Jersey is different. You go on public records, Secretary of State is like public records. You can see everybody's info. So you cannot hide much. But this is what it is. It's having a separation. The trust owns the property, and you cannot see who the individual is. Okay? And then it says, care of, let's say it's me, I'm your trustee, Bruno Q, trustee. So if somebody wants information about the property, they have to contact me, the trustee, right, to handle that information. Right? I cannot be sued personally, right, unless I commit fraud. And you're not getting sued personally unless you commit fraud. That's all.
So the trustee manages the trust. Trustee manages the trust.
Correct.
That's important.
Trustee manages the trust, yes.
That's important.
Is the trust. What? Yeah, it's a paper with value. It's like you become like a property manager in this case. If you want to think about it that way, it's like a property manager. You manage the trust. The trustee manages the trust on behalf of somebody else. The difference is when you have a property management agreement, if I want to search who's the owner of the property, I still see who the owner of the property is. Here, no. I only see the trustee. Philip says, basically liability insurance. A trust is not insurance at all. It's not insurance. You still have to have the liability insurance on the property or homeowner's insurance on the property. You still have to have it. But it is again, it's a type of protection where instead of people suing you directly, they sue the trust and the insurance within the trust. Okay? Just like an LLC. Jose, can you do a trust with a car? You can include whatever you want in a trust. Whatever you want can be included in a trust. Okay? Anything you want. In fact, if you have anything that's paid off that doesn't have any loans to it, consider putting it under an LLC or a trust. Okay? It might cost you a little bit more to get insurance under an LLC, but consider doing it. If a car is paid off and you get into a lawsuit because of a car accident, you don't have enough insurance. Let's say it doesn't, like you have the state limits, whatever is required, let's say 100 or whatever, but the lawsuit, the injuries or the injuries will be paid, but let's say they're going for some type of additional compensation. When they sue you for additional compensation, right, they can exhaust the insurance. If it exhausts the insurance, they can come after more money from you, right? By putting things under LLCs, it's owned by the LLC, so they can only come after whatever assets or whatever money or insurance the LLC has, right? So if you have anything that's paid off, consider putting it into separate either trusts or LLCs. Always talk to an attorney, always talk to a CPA to see if that fits your particular situation. Okay? All right? All right, next. That's why I said for state exams is not really too, doesn't pop up that much, but it's good to go over. Then we have a living trust. Okay? So land trust, or a trust, I'm sorry, is what we just said. Living trust is where I put any asset into a trust for during my lifetime, so as long as I'm alive, right? There's a testamentary trust, which explains what happens to the property if I die. Does it continue in the trust or does he get out of the trust? So it's almost like a will, okay? And then there's land trust, which is just for properties, just for land, just for real property. Okay, so these are three pretty much ways of creating trusts. Living trust, while I'm alive, you handle all my assets. Testamentary trust, when I die, the assets stay in the trust, right? Or land trust is for property only, and it stays there. What is another benefit of a trust? Later on, for inheritance taxes. Later on, for any potential lawsuits that might come from probate. Okay? If you're a beneficiary, like an insurance beneficiary, probate should not touch insurance claims. Okay? That's why we get life insurance, for instance. So a combination of life insurance and trusts, right, will help your heirs receive the property as they should, instead of paying everything off because you left debt. Right? I'm not telling you don't pay your debt. I'm telling you to create structures to safeguard your heirs. That's all it is. Okay? It's not the same as insurance. Life insurance is you're protecting, like if you die, you leave money, right? A trust is separating what's yours, right? And what you are beneficiary of. That's the only time I compared it to life insurance. Because in life insurance, when I buy life insurance, the money belongs to the beneficiary. The money does not belong to me. Okay? In the life insurance, the money that's in the life insurance belongs to beneficiary, not to me. Monif, I think you're muted already. So thank you. All right. So life insurance is a great tool. Trusts are great tools to protect your heirs later on. That's all I can say. Okay. Otherwise, I'll give you a whole class on insurance. But that's a different. We're doing salesperson, real estate salesperson now. All right. The next page. We are on page 47 now. We have ownership by business entities. Ownership by business entities. So, we just talked briefly. We talked about corporation. We talked about LLC. The benefit of a corporation or LLC is because they are a shield, right? The partnership is not. I hate partnerships. Okay? If you're going to go together on a joint venture to do something, we open up an LLC or a corp, depending on what our business goals are. The reason being is exactly this, the shield. In the partnership, if you get sued beyond the asset of that business. Meaning, I might have to sell my car to satisfy a lawsuit. I might have to sell paintings to satisfy the lawsuit. Heck, I might have to sell the kids to satisfy a lawsuit, right? In a partnership, it goes beyond. Oh yeah, if your partner doesn't have enough money, it passes through. Yep. Okay. Corporations are good. Partnerships are bad. LLCs are good. Yeah, we always got background music here. All right, so what is corporation? Corporation is a legal entity owned by stockholders. Nope, this is different. I own a corporation. You own a corporation. We all own a corporation. If there's 1, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16 people, if there's 16 people, right, we are stockholders of our corporation. We're not talking about stocks like a stock market. We're talking about how many shares we own in the corporation, right? So in this case, a corporation is owned by the stockholders or shareholders. Who owns the corporation? We do. Okay? Now, correct. Let me go over that. Now, corporations, like individuals, they may own real estate in severalty or as tenants in common. So if the corporation owns the property, what do you own? What is yours? Who can answer this one? The corporation owns the property. So what do you own? Nope. Anybody? Elsie, what did you say? I didn't hear you. Monifa says assets. Okay, well, the property is assets. Jose for the win. Stock or shares. We are stockholders or shareholders. That's what we own. Okay? So, house owned by the corporation. Okay? Corporation owned by stockholders. Okay? So the more, if you buy stock into the corporation, right? Do you own the real estate? No. You own a share in the company that owns the real estate. This is why I was talking about separation, right? If you're a stockholder, do you own the real estate? No. Company does. That's why when you get sued, they can only sue the company, which is the owner of the real estate. Okay? That's it. Pretty much what you have to remember here. Okay. Partnerships. In a partnership, two or more people generally agree to work together and share profits. Now, the problem with partnerships is that all the partners are fully liable for debts and obligations. If you are general partners, you're liable for debts and obligations. If you are limited partners, you're liable only to the extent of your investment. So this means limited partners is like, look, guys, I found a great deal, right? But I need to raise money. Eric, would you lend me some money? Elsie, would you lend me some money? Katya, would you lend me some money? And all you guys down there, would you lend me money to buy this property? And you guys go like, you know what? Instead of lending money, we want to be partners. Like, okay, no problem. But you're going to be limited partners. What does that mean? Well, limited partners simply means that I run the show. I'm going to buy the property. I'm going to fix the property, and I'm going to sell the property. The money that it brings, I'll give it to you. But you cannot tell me how to run the business. I will do it. I'm the general partner. You guys are limited, or sometimes you might have heard silent partners. Silent partners doesn't mean that they're secret, that they're hiding, as a lot of people think. A silent partner simply means that you have no say in the business. You cannot tell me how to run the business. That's all it is. Then he's not a silent partner. Then he's a manager. He's not a silent partner. Okay? Legal structures. I'm not talking about illegal stuff, okay? Legal structures. All right. The next one is LLC. This is one of my favorites. It's a hybrid. It's a mix between partnership and corporation, only because it's easy to manage. Huh? Sorry. Mm-hmm. In a partnership, you're talking about the manager or an owner? Okay. If you're a general partner, okay.
General partner.
Let's say we have one general partner, then we got 10 limited partners. Okay? Yeah, there you go. Yes, it says yeah. So you have one general partner and we have 10 limited partners. Okay? If something happens where we make money, let's say we're gonna make $1 million. We make $1 million. Well, guess what? Everybody gets paid, everybody's happy. If we get sued for $1 million, if we get sued for $1 million, the general partner is fully liable. Okay? The limited partners lose their investment only. Okay? So the limited partners, let's say you put $10,000 and you get sued for $1 million, that's it. You lose the $10,000. The general partner has to pay the $1 million. And if the general partner does not have the $1 million, they have to sell their car, they have to sell their house, they have to sell their kids, their wife, whatever. Right? The kids and the wife is a joke. Okay? Listen, to each his own. The point is, it goes, when there's a general partner, liability goes beyond the business. That's why I don't like partnerships. I like LLCs or corporations. In a partnership, you're going to get screwed regardless. Whatever you specify, you get screwed. Partnership goes beyond you, beyond the business, I'm sorry, always. LLC, you do not own the business, you own stock in the business or share in the business. Corporation, you do not own the business, you own stock or shares in the business. And that's so it's like being limited partners always. Okay? All right, the next thing we have, and this is going to be real quick, is condos and co-ops. Condominium and co-ops. Condominiums and co-ops. What is a condominium? Sorry, I don't have this highlighted, but I want you to highlight. Ah, she made it. All right. So condominium is a hybrid form of multi-unit residential and ownership of multi-unit properties. Okay, whether residential or commercial, it's a ownership. Now, it combines what? The fee simple interest in the airspace with a unit, ownership, and of an undivided share, as a tenant in common in the entire property's common elements, such as lobbies, swimming pools, and so on. So technically, a condominium is I own the airspace inside the building. So, but inside the unit. So this right here is a wall. From the wall in is mine. From the wall out, it belongs to the group. Right? So when we get to the elevator belongs to everybody. When we get to the swimming pool, it belongs to everybody. So we have common elements that belong to everybody. So what is mine in the condominium? Again, from this wall in. Correct. From the wall out is no longer mine. So, right here in the next page, we have this example. This is my unit. Right here. Just the airspace. That's it. Can I alter the exterior? I cannot. Gilbert just wrote an apartment. Yes, it's like being a renter, right? Except you have benefits with it. It's like being a renter, but you have benefits. See, when you're a renter, a tenant, right? You're just paying rent. If the property goes up in value, do you get money back? No. Can you sell the property for profit? No. Here you can. It's an apartment that you can sell, right? And you share common elements like the parking, the garage, the pool, driveway, and so on. So condominium, airspace that you own, and common elements in the whole property. Wow. All right, what are the interests and rights we have in a condominium? My first question right now to you guys on this is, what are rights? What rights do we have when we own property? Who remembers the rights we have? Guys, make sure you're on camera. If you're not on camera, it does not count towards your hours. Say it again.
Right.
We spoke about yesterday. What were the rights we spoke about yesterday? Okay. So we got transfer, we got use. Jose wrote possession, and Marlon wrote encumbrance. We have the right to use the property. We have the right to transfer the property. We have the right to take possession of the property, encumber the property, and Philip exclude people from the property. These are our 5 rights. So we have rights in the airspace. We have interest in everything else. We have a claim or benefit in everything else, right? So right here, we have the right of possession, the right to use, the right of exclusion, right? But then we must share common areas with the other owners. You guys good so far? Give me a thumbs up at home. You're good? Great. And over here, you guys are good? Great. All right. We have the right of transfer and encumbrance, which would be you can sell the property individually. We cannot sell the neighbor's property. We can mortgage it, right? Without any interference from the other units. So I don't need permission from my neighbor to sell my unit. Makes sense, doesn't it? Right? As a distinct entity or individual entity, if your neighbor stops paying his mortgage, do you lose your property? No, we don't, because we are individually own our unit. They individually own their unit. Okay? So far, common sense, because it's like a single family. It's the same thing. You own it, it's yours. Nobody can take it unless you're the one defaulting, right? Same thing for taxes. You pay your own taxes, right? All right. Now, how do we create condominiums? How do we create condominiums on the next page? Very simple. You buying the land? What if you already have it? Huh? Build on it? Just build it? That's it? No rules, no regulations. We buy the land, we build. Thank you. Jose wrote, it's like an estate in common. So like a tick. Because that's what estate in common is a tick. So we share the common elements. All right, so condominiums properties are created by executing and recording a condominium declaration and a master deed. What is a master deed? It's the deed that rules the whole land. Okay? So when I buy a huge piece of land, let's say, I have a master deeds to the whole thing, and I'm going to sell individual deeds to individual units. Okay? If it's a building, same thing. I have the master deed that the association usually owns, right? And then each unit has its own individual deed. That's separate. Don't be ahead of the game. The declaration must be legally correct in form and substance according to local laws. So when we get to the state portion, we'll address how the condominiums are created in the state. The party that creates the declaration is referred to as the developer. So who creates the condominium? The developer. Okay? Here are some of the things that must be in the declaration. Legal description and/or name of the property. Survey of the land. Plats and maps of land. Provisions of common areas. They must say what goes with the common areas. Identification of each unit's share ownership of the overall property. Organization plans for creation of the condo association, including its bylaws. Voting rights, membership status, liability for expenses of individual owners, and so on. and covenants and restrictions regarding the use and transfer of units. So the master deeds and the original bylaws, they're all recorded at the same time with all these regulations. Can the bylaws change along the way? Yes, by members voting. So every year we have a general assembly, let's say, right, where we all get together and we vote on the issues that all homeowners have in that association, right? If there's a majority of the homeowners that want to change the terms, right, then the changes will move forward. If we don't have enough, then it stays the same way as originally was. Okay? Gonna skip all this for now. I want you to go to the next page, and we got co-ops. Has anybody ever heard of co-ops before? Cooperatives? Co-ops? Okay. What do you know about co-ops? Let me know in the chat, or you guys here in class. Say it louder. They make the deed more easy for you? No. 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 That was a good one. Marlon says owns shares. Monifa says shares in the property. Shared ownership. Yes. So cooperatives are shared ownership shared ownership through a corporation. Okay? Shared ownership through a corporation. Shared ownership through a corporation. We do not own, Monifa, I know you wrote shares in the property, but we do not own shares in the property. We own shares in the corporation that owns the property. Okay? That's why we have shared ownership through the corporation. Okay? What we own is shares. This is what we own. Shares. Do we own real estate? No. We own shares. Along with the stock, the shareholder acquires a proprietary lease to occupy one of the apartment units. Okay? So when you're in a co-op, right, you are, according to this right here, you are a tenant shareholder. Okay? So in a co-op, you are a tenant shareholder. You have a lease to occupy one unit, but you own shares or stock in the owner of the building, which is the company. Okay, the corporation. You only occupy one unit, and you have the right to occupy because of this proprietary lease.
By renting or personal use?
No, personal use.
Oh.
But you are a renter. You are the renter. You own stock. That's what you purchase, is stock, and the right to use the property. That's all. Okay? So it's different than condominium. Condominium, you own the individual units, right? In a co-op, you don't. So, in a co-op, this is what you get. If you guys remember, in the condo, we own the airspace right here, unit 1, right? There was the airspace. That's what we had, right? We own it. Now, we do not own it. We lease it. In the co-op, we lease. Because what we own is a stock certificate to 1/9 of everything. Stock certificate to 1/9 of everything. Okay? So, corporation owns building. Okay? You are a tenant shareholder. Again, you are a tenant shareholder because you own stock in the corporation. You own stock in the corporation that owns the building, right? And you have a lease to occupy one unit. Corporation owns the building, not you. Any questions here? No? Questions? Great question, Philip. Can you sublease or sublet? Because you are a tenant, you might not be able to at all. Most co-ops say that you have to occupy the unit. Okay? Certain states, like state of New Jersey, for instance, makes it mandatory that if you're having difficulties paying the whatever the fees are, if you're having difficulties, they mandate that you try to sell the unit first, and after a certain period of time, if you cannot, then you're going to ask the board of directors, your landlord, you're going to ask him if you can rent to somebody else or sublease. Okay? So technically, no, you cannot. Well, but that's different. Here, you can't. And even the renting to somebody else, the roommate thing and stuff like that, you have to look at what the lease says. If the lease says no subleasing, then you can't. And most leases, just like this one, will say no subleasing unless you have the landlord's authorization. That means if you ever want to rent your unit to someone else, you need to contact your landlord and say, hey, I'm having difficulty, I need to add more people, like roommates. Or I'm having difficulty, I need to leave. I need to put somebody else in place. So you have to contact your landlord. Do people do this? That's a different story. But law says you have to contact your landlord. Now, just like a condo, you share the driveway, you share the parking, the garage, the pool. So again, it's an apartment building. Both of these are apartment buildings, right? But in one of them, you own your unit. In the other, you lease your unit. What do you own? Stock. All right. Next page, interest, rights, and obligations in a co-op. Now, some of the stuff that I'm skipping here is either because I already addressed it, right? Or I'm going to address it more in detail in a different section. Okay? So, cooperative association interest. The corporate entity of a co-op association is the only part in the cooperative with a real property interest. The association's interest is an undivided interest in the entire property. There is no ownership interest in individual units, as within a condominium. I already addressed that. Okay? And then we have shareholder interest. This is you guys. You're the shareholder, right? Shareholder interest in owning stock and the lease. A co-op unit owner's interest is personal property that is subject to control by the corporation. Unlike condominium ownership, the co-op owner owns neither a unit nor an undivided interest in the common elements. So you do not own anything. Susanna, already? 7:20. You're already asking for a break? So what you get is shareholder interest and a proprietary lease. What's a proprietary lease? is just a renting agreement that allows you to occupy the property. That's it. But only the owners of the corporation, so stockholders, can occupy the property. Only. Okay? There is no stated or fixed rent. What you get is a share of the expenses in supporting the cooperative. So think about this. In a condo, you own your own unit. In a condo, you pay your own taxes, your own insurance, your own mortgage, everything. In a co-op, the company, the corporation that owns the building says, hey, taxes are $60,000. Mortgage is $400,000, whatever amounts, right? We're going to figure out how many owners we have, and we divide by everybody. That monthly fee is what you're going to pay as a rental fee. Okay? So the monthly fee is what you are paying. Okay? It's a monthly assessment. Now, the problem with this format, if I'm a landlord, guys, let's say I'm a landlord, right? And I have 100 units, and I don't pay my mortgage or I don't pay my taxes, what's going to happen to the building? If I do not pay, what happens to the building? I lose it? Yeah, foreclose, right? And what happens to the tenants? The tenants, if they have a standing lease, they stay, right? As long as they're paying. If they don't pay, they get evicted. Simple, right? In a co-op, if the corporation does not pay the fees, all the owners lose the building and lose their interest in the building. So everybody must go. The problem with a co-op is exactly that. It's the expense liability. Since the corporation owns an undivided interest in the property, debts and financial obligations apply to the property as a whole, not to individual units. So if 20 people out of the 100 stop paying their monthly fees, right? If 20 people out of the 100 stop paying the monthly fees, the 80 people that are paying on time are also going to lose, because we foreclose on the entire property, not the individual units that are not paying. You got it? Co-op, it's shared ownership. If we don't pay, we all lose. Okay? Right? Well, yeah, that's why usually to get approved into a co-op, you have to be at a certain level. They say that everybody got to be 740 or better score. Everybody got to make $100,000 or more, as an example, right? They have to have 6 months to 1 year's reserves, right? They have to have their job for more than 2 years, as an example. So they want to make sure they have solid buyers that are buy into the co-op, so that this stuff does not happen. Could it still happen? Yeah. All right. And the next page we have time scams. Anybody owns a time scam? Anybody? All right. If you never purchased a timeshare, if you don't know what it is you sharing the time in a particular property. You own 1 week of the whole year. You own 1 week that you can go on vacation to. You can, for instance, let's say you want to go, like my business partner right now is in Jamaica, right? He has a timeshare. So this year he decided to go to Jamaica. Well, this year. Now he decided, the previous one this year still he was in Aruba and so on. So there's a timeshare where you can use that 1 week and go to different places. He purchased more than 1 week. Yeah. So you can go and occupy that unit for 1 week. Okay.
Someone else is looking for that unit.
Jose says, I do. You own a timeshare? I'm sorry. What'd you say?
Timeshare.
Correct. So there's 52 weeks, 52 weeks in the year. There could be 52 owners. All right. So that means I go this week, you go next week, you go the week after, and so on. We only have that 1 week.
Like Airbnb, instead of renting.
It's like, well, but you can own it as well. See, lease or freehold. All right. But a timeshare is just that. Now, what you need to remember about timeshare, it's not good.
1 week, right?
No, the timeshares could be great if you can take advantage. The problem is most people that buy timeshares never even use it. Yeah, that's the only problem. But anyway, so timeshare is you get there 1 week. What you need to remember about timeshare weeks is that you also share the property's expenses. And you're sharing the property's expenses for the whole year. So if there's $10,000 for the year in expenses, they divide that by 52 owners, right? And you're paying that monthly. So you occupy 1 week, but you have a whole year to pay in expenses, including house cleaning. Crazy, right? Yep. Right, you should pay for that 1 week only. Oh, then you do Airbnb. Or you do a hotel.
Exactly.
You just never know what the price is going to be tomorrow. This way, you already know the price.
Fairly priced over.
That's it. All right, guys, we're done with this chapter. I'm going to give that break that Susanna's been asking for the past half hour. All right? Yesterday was Jose. Today is Susanna. Terrible. See, this is what the wine does to you. You ask for a break. Nobody told you to drink wine. It's the Gatorade then.
It's not helping.
All right, guys. So it's 7:29. We're going to be back. It's going to be 11-minute break. We'll be back at 7:40. All right. Make sure you guys go get some coffee. Go get your Red Bull. Go get whatever is good for you. And come back. Okay. YouTube, I'm going to close this session. I'll open one right after. See you guys in a bit.